morning, Jeroen. Welcome. And it's very good to have you today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure.
So for the benefits of the audience who is going to watch this interview, do you mind to tell us a little bit about yourself and also how are you involved in dealing with the climate change or sustainability?
Yes, well, I'm a chemical engineer by training. I started my working life with Heineken, brewing beer nearly all over the world. Well, working in all kinds of different places, even in the 90s and 80s or late 80s, begin 90s, confronted with the fact that we couldn't continue doing what we were doing in the same way. Something was giving, and that was the environment and the climate. Well, during my first job at Heineken, I moved more and more towards innovation. Found that really interesting and really fascinating. Realizing new things, and they don't have to be inventions, but they're, in the classical definitions, it's a new combination of things that creates new value. And that really fascinated me. After Heineken, went to INSEAD, did my MBA, and then basically stayed in innovation and business development. And I've done that now for the past 25, 30 years, of which the last 7 years for Philips, where we are a kind of special group within Philips, supporting Philips with innovation challenges. And they can be from how to manage innovation to solving technical problems. And what I find fascinating is that we work both for Philips and for the external world. We have a broad array of, let's say, experiences working for very different types of organizations, and all around the theme, accelerating innovation, making innovation work. Climate change and sustainability issues, what we'll come to realize that if you want to have any impact on climate change or any impact on sustainability, you'll have to innovate. Mm-hmm. And you'll have to change, you'll have to do things in a different way. Therefore, let's say innovation and doing something about sustainability are, for me, for us, very much two sides of the same coin.
That's fascinating, because I remember when we were preparing and talking about this interview, you also emphasized is sort of realizing the ambitions and converting the good intentions to actions and results. So obviously innovation plays a very big part in making that happen. If I may ask, in the past 25 years, kind of what are the 2 or 3 examples of innovations or how you do things differently that are, looked very challenging at the beginning, but actually it pays off very well or pays off, more than you expected? Could you share with us some of those stories?
Well, I realized this morning that I've got a fair selection of those, but perhaps to also illustrate 2 things, that you have to be brave to do new things. And whether you do them for climate change, sustainability, or just normal innovation, you'll be going against the established paradigm and way of thinking. And you need to be brave. Even as a big company, you need to be brave. To give you that example, from the animal husbandry, we were asked to support a project to implement and deploy a very novel feed for pigs. The whole idea was that by changing the percentage composition of pig feed, doing that in a fairly radical way, so no new ingredients, but a tremendous change in percentage composition. The idea was that you could make a much better feed for pigs. And the great thing was, it was one of the rare, really triple P projects that I've done. Really planet, people, profit, because kilo for kilo, you would have a 15% smaller footprint, which is substantial in my view, if you really talk about kilo for kilo. the great thing was the feed was better for the pigs and for the farmers, health-wise. The pigs because they could eat a lot less and still have the same growth, and for farmers because it was a lot less dusty, i.e. you run less risk of inhaling the dust, whatever. So that was a very interesting one. And then also for profit, it turned out that both for the farmer and for the manufacturer of this feed, it was a very financially very attractive new feed to run. So it demonstrated to me that these guys, everybody said that you're crazy if you do this, it will go wrong, whatever. They realized that it would be a struggle, so they asked us to be the, let's say, the evil outside eye to keep them on the straight and narrow. And it was a huge success. It was really nice to see that all they hoped for came out of this project. That's one. The other one within Philips, and let's say that first one was really daring. The other one for Philips was we already have circular programs for our big machinery. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we have in place. We're now very hard at work to develop a circular approach for our smaller equipment. Let's call that, this case, let's call them widgets. It's still work in progress. And we were working on, okay, and logistically, how we're going to do these widgets. They sell them by the thousands to all kinds of hospitals all over the world. How are you going to get them back? Logistically, that's not easy. You have to disinfect them. They come out of a hospital. You have to wipe all patient data. A host of things that you need to do. And also things that we didn't really think of in the beginning. You have to move them off the balance sheet in the hospital and onto your balance sheet to be able to then reprocess and rework and whatever. Because they're incoming goods all of a sudden. So we were constructing that, and then the business lead of this Philips division said, yeah, but if we make it circular, so we're going to refurbish them and then put these widgets out in the market again, are we ever going to make money on it? Because all my commercial people assure me will never make a profit on it. Mm-hmm. But she said, go and do the numbers, and I want to see what comes out of it. And lo and behold, we did the numbers based on their input. We didn't put in any, we developed the algorithm, but we didn't put in the numbers. That's what they did. And it turns out to be very, very probably, we're now developing it in the last detail, but it turns out to be a profitable business. So to make things circular, you also have to be willing to challenge the paradigms. Everybody says it can't be profitable. If we make this circular, it will be a loss-leading activity. No, it isn't. So it's also, if you believe in your standard business model, a circular business model won't fit in. But if you say, okay, we have to, because that was something that Frans van Houten did for us at Davos. He very, very publicly said, we are going to be a circular company, and set us quite substantial targets for 2025. Well, then you have to. There's no way back. The boss promised to the outside world that we would become circular. You better go and do it. And that helps, because then you're allowed to challenge the paradigms. Otherwise, everybody's saying, but that's not the way we do it. No, that's something that is sure. If you innovate, if you do something about climate change or sustainability, you will not be doing it in the old way, because the old way is on the way out.
You must have seen a lot of these quiet or silent resistance to change. And you clearly have a lot of experience in mobilizing an organization, a complex or a global organization, to make some big, bold changes. What would you say to people who are struggling to get there, to initiate that, even the conversation, even just to start thinking about making small steps of change, not even big one? What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, you said the large silent opposition. In my experience, many people in an organization are aware of the need of change. Mm-hmm. And I often find that it is a minority that is very noisy in its opposition. Mm-hmm. And then the others will say, okay, never mind, I've got other things to do. So it's the noisy minority that you have to deal with. Most organizations, people see the need for sustainability, see the need for change and whatever. But a couple of very noisy people might hold the whole thing back. Mm-hmm. So it's so focus on the willing. Mm-hmm. I think they are the most important, because that also then kind of creates pull. Mm-hmm. If people see things moving, if the silent majority that is willing to change and look at change and whatever, if they are being heard, then the naysayers might be more willing to change their mind. Okay. So I would say focus on the willing, and very important, if you give someone the challenge, go save the climate or go save the planet, very few people will be able to get that started. Mm-hmm. And very often you see organizations that have a good awareness of somewhere in the future we will have to undergo major changes, but it's so far away and it's so big. It is like a Mount Everest size plate of spaghetti, where to begin. And we very often borrow the analogy of innovation programs, larger innovation programs. Develop a roadmap. Try to slice and dice the elephant so it becomes manageable and you can cook the elephant. So finding a way of saying, okay, we've got our North Star somewhere out there in 2030, 2040, whenever. But what are we going to do tomorrow? What will we have achieved next year? And it might not be dramatic, but it is moving. And then you see that people realize, okay, we're not going to pull the whole organization apart. Things are working. More is possible than we imagined. And mm-hmm. It's like riding a bicycle. If you read a book about it, you might learn a lot, but nothing will happen. And you'll have to start to ride that bicycle. And you better not do it on the Tour de France in the beginning, but in a quiet neighborhood where you won't break your neck and won't be run over. And it's the same for programs like this. The end goal is so big and so challenging and whatever, you have to find a way to start closer at home. I think a very famous person, wasn't it Confucius, who said, any journey, how far it is, starts with the first step or something. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important thing to get things moving.
That hits home a lot of the conversations that we had with a lot of the companies the team is approaching, about helping them to start the sustainability journey, to start thinking about it, and kind of trying to make it a bit more digestible before I like your analogies of the Mount Everest size of spaghetti. That is very vivid and a very kind of probably, the feeling that a lot of people have when they think about this whole topic. She talked about when you were telling us the two fascinating story, you think about planet, people, and profit. Mm-hmm. Is it how you always encourage the team to think about kind of the sort of planet, people, profit? Is it something that you feel it's really important that the considerations of the planet has to be in that discussions all the time? Otherwise, it's very easy that people might derail or deprioritize it.
Well, if you've done your MBA or you went to INSEAD, you've probably learned about the importance of profit, because somewhere along the line, as an organization, you'll have to be careful about your money and continue sufficient cash flow to continue be able to do your things. So profit very often is, and it's also very often an argument used against taking action, because our profit will go down, our shareholders will be unhappy and whatever. So profit needs to be part of the equation. I think if you're talking about climate change and sustainability, planet needs to be kept in mind. But we should also do it in a way that you take care of people. If you don't aim to find a balance between all three, like using palm oil based diesel might be reasonably CO2 friendly, but that's about all it is. You'll chop down a lot of rainforest, you'll destroy a lot of biodiversity, you'll displace people, whatever. So it is not a very good solution. Although you might be serving profit and the CO2 issue. And in that respect, do you know the definition of sustainability by Brundtland? That's, I think, a very good one. That was, but it basically says, if we do things in a sustainable way, our grandchildren, all our grandchildren, not just a selected few, but all our grandchildren will be doing it in the same way. The whole idea is, if everybody all over the world can do something in this way, also 2 generations from now, it is probably pretty sustainable. If we run sustainability or climate change programs, yes, nice solution, but if we do it on a very large scale, will it still work? And then very often you realize, no, it won't work. So back to the drawing board.
Yeah.